you will spend roughly 90,000 hours of your life working. That's not a typo. 90,000 hours. If you started counting the moment you were born and never stopped, you'd be over 10 years old before that number of hours had even passed. Now here's the part that should bother you. For over 90% of human history, our ancestors didn't have jobs. No alarm clocks, no bosses, no 40-hour weeks. So what did they do instead? And more importantly, were they happier than us? Stick around. The answer might make you angry. For roughly 200,000 years, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. No agriculture, no cities, no currency. Just small bands of people, usually 20 to 50, moving with the seasons, following food. We assume this life was miserable, brutal, a constant fight against starvation. That assumption comes from a mix of old anthropology and Hollywood. Cavemen depicted as grunting, half-starved, in a permanent state of crisis. But in the 1960s, an anthropologist named Marshall Sahlins studied surviving hunter-gatherer societies, groups like the Ju-Hoansi of the Kalahari Desert, and what he found broke the model completely. He called it, and this term matters, remember it, the original affluent society. Not affluent because they had more, affluent because they needed less and had time left over. So how much did they actually work? Sahlins' research, later supported by studies from anthropologists Richard Lee and James Suzman, found that hunter-gatherers spent an average of 15 to 20 hours a week securing food and resources. Compare that to the modern average of 40+ hours, not counting commuting, chores, emails answered at 10 p.m., or the mental labor of just always being on. Here's the catch though, and this is where it gets interesting. Hunter-gatherers didn't have refrigerators. No canned food, no way to stockpile for winter the way farmers later would. You'd think that means they were constantly on edge, constantly hunting, but the opposite was true. Because they didn't accumulate surplus, they didn't need to protect surplus. No storage to defend, no inventory to manage, no debt, no rent. Their economy was built on something modern economists call immediate return systems. You get food today, you eat it today. Tomorrow, you do it again. No long-term planning, no stress about quarterly numbers. James Suzman, who spent decades living among the Ju-Hoansi, wrote that many hunter-gatherers viewed constant labor and accumulation the way we view, quote, a kind of madness. But wait, if they only worked 15 hours a week, what did they do with the other 110? This is where most people assume nothing, idle time, boredom. They'd be wrong. And what filled that time might be the biggest thing modern life has lost. The remaining time wasn't downtime the way we think of it, scrolling, zoning out, numbing. It was filled with things anthropologists group into 4 categories. 1. Deep social bonding. Storytelling wasn't entertainment on the side, it was the entertainment. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner studied the Ju-Hoansi and found that daytime conversation was mostly practical, complaints, economics, gossip. But nighttime conversation around the fire was almost entirely storytelling, myths, histories, jokes, songs. This is likely where human culture as we know it was actually built. Not in a workplace, around a fire at night with nothing to do but talk. 2. Skill mastery, toolmaking, tracking, plant knowledge. These weren't jobs you clocked into. They were skills refined over a lifetime, more like a craft or an art form than work in our sense. 3. Rest, real rest. Multiple studies on modern hunter-gatherer groups, including the Hadza of Tanzania, show they sleep more soundly and nap more freely than people in industrialized societies, despite having no mattresses, no blackout curtains, none of the sleep hygiene products we spend billions on. 4. Play. Both adults and children engaged in play regularly. Something modern work culture treats as a reward you earn, not a baseline you deserve. Put simply, the off hours weren't empty. They were the point. So if this life was slower, more social, more rested, why did we ever leave it? The answer is not because it was hard. It's something almost nobody expects. Around 12,000 years ago, agriculture began. And this is the part textbooks get backwards. We're taught farming was an upgrade, humans figuring out a better way to live. But the archaeological evidence tells a different story. Early farmers were shorter, sicker, and had worse teeth than the hunter-gatherers before them. Skeletal remains show increased signs of malnutrition, infectious disease from living near livestock, and, critically, a massive spike in hours worked. Farming required constant repetitive labor. Planting, tending, defending the harvest from animals and other humans, storing it, rationing it. And once there was surplus to protect, there was something to steal. Which meant hierarchy, which meant defenders and rulers, and eventually, debts. Jared Diamond, the biologist and author, called agriculture, bluntly, the worst mistake in the history of the human race. Not because it didn't work, it worked too well. It allowed populations to explode, but at an individual level, quality of life dropped for thousands of years afterward. We didn't trade a bad life for a good one. We traded a slower, harder to scale life for a harder, easier to scale one. Fast forward past agriculture, past industrialization, past 100 generations of humans working longer and longer, and you land right back where we started this video. You, punching in 90,000 hours. We built the most productive, wealthiest, most technologically advanced civilization in the history of our species. And somewhere along the way, we worked ourselves out of the thing our ancestors had the most of: time, rest, each other. Here's the idea I want you to leave with. For 200,000 years, work was something you did to get to life. 15 hours, then back to your people, your fire, your rest. For the last 12,000, we slowly flipped that. Life became something you fit around work. Ancient humans didn't have less. In a lot of ways, they had more. They just measured it differently. So here's the question worth sitting with. If you got those 25 hours back, what would you actually do with them? Let me know in the comments. I read everyone.